just MailChimped my marketing.
You MailChimped your what?
I MailChimped my marketing with AI to create an effective marketing campaign in minutes.
No, MailChimp and Way.
Yes, MailChimp in Way. Now I can hyper-personalize my campaigns across email and SMS.
You can do all that with MailChimp?
What did I just MailChimp and say?
MailChimp your marketing with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-ons. Visit MailChimp.com.
Welcome to Raising Me, where we dive into the world of parenting and reach out to the experts for advice. I'm Adrienne Stein, a longtime journalist and a mom of 3. Today, we are talking about the challenges teenagers are facing right now. Got one at home myself, a 17-year-old. We're talking about academically, socially, and emotionally, whether it's school stress or just trying to figure out who they are. Teens are going through so much, and as parents, it can really feel overwhelming to know how to help. So, what are teens saying? What aren't they saying? We're going to chat with a longtime school counselor who shares what's going on, sort of behind the scenes at school and what we as parents might be missing. Also, of course, just as importantly, how we can help. Melissa Fowler is back. She is the mom of 4 and has more than 25 years experience as a high school guidance counselor. She is so passionate about helping students through their academic and their personal journeys. You actually may have heard her in an episode, Never Unplugged, What's Happening in High Schools. If you haven't, it's a great listen with 2 just remarkable students sharing their experience. We will put that in the show notes. But today, we're going to go deeper into the teen experience to understand what might be going on, even when we hear, it's fine, I'm fine, it's nothing, or it's not that deep. Check it out. All right, Melissa, thank you for being here. This is a treat because I feel like you're sort of the parents' eyes and ears inside the school.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I started out as a mental health clinician and worked with youth population in a inpatient treatment facility, and then did couples counseling, kids counseling, things like that. And then I started to have a family. And so I went back and got another degree to do school counseling. And so I've been in a school. This is I'm in my 27th year, have 4 kids of my own, and it's a lot of fun. I love this population of kiddos. So specifically when I was changing careers, I thought, who do I want to work with? And I love this age group. They're at such pivotal times in their life, such growth from coming up from middle school and then leaving in their post-secondary journey. Like, what does that look like? And it's not the same for everybody. So that's my career in a nutshell.
Yeah, and it's such a tough age too, because it is sort of, you're on that, am I a child? Am I an adult? And you really do see that transformation, I'm sure, from freshman to senior year. I remember as a freshman walking into high school and seeing the seniors, I was like, whoa, they're adults.
Oh, for sure. Sure. It's definitely, and it's interesting too, to hear them with their feedback, because in my specific role, not only do I get to see kiddos for social emotional, but also academic. Mm-hmm. And even today I had a couple of senior appointments, both with males. And one of the kiddos said, God, I wish I knew what I knew now when I was a freshman.
Yes. Isn't that so true?
And I was, and I keep thinking to myself, of all the programming that we do, we should probably have some sort of like upperclassmen sit down, because their brains aren't formulated
If I
yet.
were to do this again, here are 3 things. Actually, that would be really fun. Here are 3 things I wish I would have known as a freshman going through it. You're pushing 30 years in a school, which is crazy. But I'm sure you have seen just the interactions among teenagers change over the years. Obviously, cell phones and social media have come within that time. But what are the changes that you have seen in the way kids interact with each other, by themselves, and really with teachers?
Yeah. So very different than it was, almost 30 years ago. And back when I was in school, I feel like, the kids joke the 1900s. But I think that there are some good and some positive in my professional opinion. I think, again, 2 seconds on COVID, it did a disservice to a lot of kids because they became very isolated. And then some kids in their formative years haven't learned how to kind of grow out of that, even the social interactions or how to interact with an adult, with a teacher at school. But some of the positive things that I've seen is that I feel as though over the years, the cliques are very different.
How so?
Well, I think back, and I think, there were definitely groups of people, of kiddos in different groups. We had theater kids, we had the athletes, you had kiddos who were, completely academically driven. We had kids who were into, gearheads like motors and cars and things like that. And so just different populations of kids. And I see these days they mesh and they're involved in a lot of different things. And so different clubs and activities that I am involved in, so many different kinds of kids coming together for their common interest or common goal or passion.
I love that. I actually have the chills. I love that.
That is such a positive and so refreshing. It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding to see. And I love that kids are able to feel comfortable to be themselves and to come out, even if they're not a leader in a way that they're more vocal, but they go back with their group of people, and then more people come. So it's either the growth of different groups. It's just great. It's great to see that kind of interactions is different. And I also see, speaking of teachers, we really work with kids on how to talk to teachers and what you say or what you email and things like that. Because the younger kids just they have no idea. And so it's been eye-opening to see how teachers and student relationships are so much different now as well.
It's funny. I also think that like crafting, I just think going back to the email exchange, I sometimes like I've read what my daughter or son has sent to a teacher. And I'm like, whoa, that feels abrupt or abrasive when they're not meaning it that way, but they're just structuring, here's the fact, okay, bye.
Right.
And, whereas, once you get into a professional setting, you sort of craft emails and you really think about the tone in which you're delivering it. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I have a printout in my office. I laminated it. About how to even address someone either verbally or in an email because they don't know. My husband's a science teacher at the school that I'm at, and he received an email last night. It said, bro. And then it was,
what?
Yeah, no capital letters, no kids capitalize anything. No punctuation. Or going over applications for college. I'm like, oh, we've got to capitalize. We need to use And anyway, but so just working with the kids on that stuff. But kids feel very comfortable. It's very different. And that's good. They feel comfortable, right? And more, I think that they feel faculty are more approachable and it's a safe place.
So a positive of the way you're seeing kids interact, though, going back to that they're much more involved in a cross section of activities. But how else have you seen, like, what has been, in your view, just with social media, with phones, clearly we did not have phones when we were walking down the hallways at school or have them buzzing or pinging in a backpack. How has that impacted the school experience?
Yeah, I'd like to say in a positive way, but I'll start with just this year. So our school had seen such tremendous negative cause and effect of using the phone. And so we're at a no cell phone policy this year. Kiddos can have it in the hallway, although it's a 3-minute passing time and you got to run from one end of the building to the other. But
you're not creating a TikTok.
Right.
In 3
their
minutes.
head is still in their phone and at lunch. And so it's really centered, focused on the learning. And so if a kiddo needed something or the teacher said, hey, you can pull out your phone, we're researching this. If they didn't have their laptop or a Chromebook or whatever it may be, that's fine. But I will say, so they can still use that as a tool. I mean, we're at a no cell phone policy because of this epidemic in society of bullying and harassment and or self-image. This is what I think that I need to look like. I need to be like, I need to act like what keyboard warriors, or phone warriors and what they're saying to each other, and not learning social skills. Right. And we talked about, how to present something like, oh my, you have to think before you write or before you speak and how you write it, how you say it, what's offensive and what is not, what's appropriate. So unfortunately, it's drastically changed younger kids as well. I mean, high school is, we have definitely issues with kids who don't feel safe accessing school. It impedes their day in that there's, say, harassment or what they perceive as bullying, or maybe they perceive just making fun, not feeling comfortable, and they don't want to come to school. So it leaks social, emotional, and then into academic world. And I think, well, I know that it starts early. Kiddos have phones early.
They do. And I think just again, reflecting back is if you were picked on as a kid in school before cell phones, at least it kind of ended at 3 o'clock and you had a safe space at home.
The break.
You had a little bit of a
Yeah.
break. And now it is where it is it could be a relentless cycle. And you go back to where people can hide behind the keyboard, and so they can be extra vicious.
Absolutely.
About it. What ways are you, just thinking in terms of like how teenagers are doing?
Yeah.
What ways are you seeing teens struggling right now?
I see teens struggling. Well, so there's two avenues, I think. So the academic avenue, it's so funny. This has been a hot topic of trying to problem solve and support in the school right now. And teens are struggling in executive functioning skills. I think, and I hate to say it, but maybe just at this age group right now and this grade levels going back to COVID, they missed some key developmental steps.
100%. I mean, I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to be the COVID blamer, but
No, I
but
understand.
it's impactful. And so we're finding in education, trying to find ways to problem solve to help kids. So executive functioning.
When you say executive functioning, just to break it down, what do you mean by executive
Yeah.
functioning?
So how they manage their time,
Yeah.
how are they organized? Do they keep lists? Do they keep a calendar? When I tell a kiddo we're making an appointment, I'm like, okay, I invited you. They're like, well, where do I find the invite? How do I track that? So it's that kind of education, but executive functioning on how you're spending your time and what you're doing. And so we're being very calculated and conscientious to teach kids these things early in classes and almost putting it into the curriculum, helping them figure these things out. So we've seen major detriment there in the gaps that kiddos have because of whatnot, but also social emotionally talk about, screen time and things like that. The kids are up on their phone all night. Well, one boy said the other day, very open and honest, he said, I deleted all my social media, but TikTok. I know I need to delete it. I can spend hours looking on TikTok and get lost. He goes, and then I'm tired. And then I don't want to get up. Then I don't go to school. Then I get behind on my work. And then it's a snowball, right? Kids acknowledge this and they see it. We just have to try to help them navigate, find the crux of the issue. What do we need to change? What do we need to educate and how we help?
And then, that sounds like a child who is very self-reflective and can identify there's a problem here. He's not able to stop it at this point.
Right.
And that's, goes down the road of the algorithm, and it's really designed to keep a child like that in that space. But then that, of course, no doubt bleeds into the academics of kids.
Absolutely. I mean, the kids are also, the executive functioning and time management about how much time are they spending? How do you study? Are you studying a little bit every week when you know you have a test in 2 weeks? Or are you cramming for 2 hours the night before after you were on TikTok, had a sport, didn't eat dinner, all of those things. So I think what we're doing, I hate to jump to this, but what we're modeling and what we're talking to kids about and how we're paying attention to our kids is huge. Because sometimes they just don't know, and we just might need to step in and help them navigate that as parents.
Well, it just seems like there's very little downtime because the downtime is then filled with the TikToks or the FaceTime or whatever you're doing on your phone.
Right.
Yeah. So, how can we as parents, because you're seeing them at school probably when their guard is a little bit down in many cases. So how can we as parents identify, that
changes?
Like my child is struggling and I don't know what to do.
Right. I think a couple of things. And so I always have the caveat, what's normal for someone might not be normal for somebody else, like a behavior or a pattern. And so we talk to kids a lot about, what parents are looking for. So if you think there's a change in your kiddo, is there a change in their behavior? Are they moody or are they just overtired and grumpy? Have they lost their appetite? Have they changed their friends? Are they isolating at home? Did their grades slip? Anything that you are noticing, those are the first kind of red flags, right? Those are things that sometimes a parent will call us about, or that a teacher might say, oh, Johnny's sleepy in class. Are they are they complaining about like psychosomatic issues? I have a bellyache every day, Mom. I don't want to go to school, or I come home with a headache every day. So is it the stress?
Yeah, anxiety.
Have their eating habits changed? Things like that. So those are the things we talk to parents about looking for.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop early holiday deals now.
But once we've looked for them,
Yeah.
once we've identified them,
Mhm.
then what do we do with that information to really help them in the best way possible?
Right. So the first thing is open communication, right? And modeling. And I'll go in a little bit about that too. But so open communication is huge. Saying it's okay to struggle. Like it's okay to struggle academically or social emotionally, whatever the struggle may be. And it's normal and it's okay. So like kind of normalizing that. But then that, parents like, I don't want to pester. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to do too little.
I think that's key because especially with teenagers,
Yep.
you're often as a parent walking that fine line
Mhm.
of, caring or intrusive, or that's the way
Right.
you feel
Right.
when you're trying to dig in a little
Right.
bit further.
So I think, some of the biggest things are saying it, opening up and just saying, hey, Madeline, I've noticed this. I want to talk, I don't want to overwhelm you, but, kind of own those things and own the things that you're feeling like, hey, Madeline, I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm noticing these things. I know you're tired. I know you don't want to talk about it right now, but you know what? I think we're going to what do you think about us every Sunday going for a walk and talking about this? Or every Sunday at 5:00, we know or 10:00 in the morning, we're going to sit down and we're going to just check in about the week. And that can morph into a really open lane of communication. The kiddo knows once a week we're having like a legit sit down, whatever that looks like.
They can gear themselves up for it too.
You can even say, okay, next week, you know what? I want to talk about like whatever stage you're in. You're a job shadow. You're going to get your first job. You're applying for colleges. You're looking for how to write a resume, anything like that. But your kiddo knows you as a parent or guardian, they can plan on this once a week, right? And so they're opening communication and they know that there's an agenda we are talking about. They can't bury their head in the sand and be like, Mom and Dad, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. So I think those are huge things as parents. You notice the red flag, you name it, you talk about it, and you're open about it. And then if they say, I don't talk about this with you.
Yeah. Or I'm good. I'm fine. Yeah.
Always.
Always.
It's not that deep.
It's not that. Yes, it is not that deep.
It is not that deep. So I always say also sitting down on that first, second conversation, establishing a routine. Let's break down your day, Maddie. What are you doing all day long? And then say, well, how do we need to change it? Why are you tired? Why don't you have time? Where is it that you're spending all of your time? And you're in clubs and you're in sports or you're working all the time or you're caring for younger siblings, whatever it may be. So establishing a routine with a kiddo, helping them figure that out, I think is huge. Academic side helps with that too. But do you need to reach out to the teachers? Do you need to reach out to the school counselor who then can navigate, all right, I'll check in with this, the school counselor will check in with the teacher or see the level after they check in with the kid. Do they need a social worker for a more regular visit? Because kiddos, we know nothing as a parent.
No,
and so they're more apt to open up to a non-biased adult who they can just be open and honest with, because again, sometimes mom and dad are too old and might not know what they're talking about.
Or they're just so annoying.
Yeah.
I've accepted that.
Yeah, me too. Me many times.
But, kind of going back to the being able to ask for help and teaching our kids that everybody has to ask for help every now and again. And if it's not me as mom or dad or whoever, how do we empower them to feel comfortable going to a school counselor, a teacher, a trusted adult, so that even if it's not that they're, they're not talking to us, that they're just getting it off
Connecting with
their
someone.
chest and talking in some way.
So I think there's kind of two avenues. One, if you have that conversation with your kiddo and you're giving them ideas like, hey, they're say, I didn't understand this math quiz, and I had a girl came in today. I didn't understand this math quiz. I'm going to fail. I'll never get into college. She's a sophomore.
Oh,
and, so she's feeling heavy. So I said, okay, we broke down her preparation. We started talking about all of this. And I said, have you talked to your mom and dad? Yes, I cry every night. And so I was like, okay, well, have you utilized your resources? Math lab, before school, after school? Are you seeing the teacher during study halls? Like, what are you doing to prep?
Proactive.
And then they will say, well, I don't want to raise my hand in class. That's so lame. It's so embarrassing.
Cringe. So cringe.
And so what I'll say is, all right, have you ever sent an email? Let's breach that by sending an email. Well, I don't know what to say. So I sit down with them and we talk about, what can you put in email? How do you write the email like we talked about earlier? And then we have in there a first step of communication. And then I said, so the teacher is they're definitely going to email you back, and or you could say, can we talk after class? Or can I see you after school? So it's on your time, you're prepared, and it's in their own kind of comfort zone.
None of this happens overnight.
Never.
Either. Think,
no.
Like if a child is struggling academically, like this is not a quick fix. Next week, they'll be much better after we have this little conversation, or socially, or whatever it is. Like, what is, and every situation is different, but what is a reasonable expectation when it comes to turning that ship around?
Yeah, I think, right. It depends on the situation. It depends on what it is. But I think that a couple things. One, if a parent can partner with the school. So you've talked to your kiddo, you've given them a task, you've helped them kind of step forward, and you give them, say, you know what, next week we're going to check in on our weekly check-in, whatever day that is. And if you find that there's been no progress, or I didn't have time, there's lots of excuses, still more tears, whatever it may be, then you can say, listen, would you mind if I reached out to the school? Can I reach out to your school counselor?
You ask your child, okay.
Now, the child may be like, yeah, go ahead, please. Or they might be like, never. No. And so as a parent, I cannot tell you how many parents email or call saying, I've talked to my kid, I need help. Some parents say, please don't tell them I called.
Yeah.
That is our job. We are crafty at talking to kiddos and kind of pulling some things out, right? And getting to the bottom of it. And then they just feel so much relief. So you're partnering with the school. Then the school, us, will figure out, is it what we need to do with them? Do we need resources for school? We'll have a staffing. Are we just going to talk to the teacher? Do we go with the kiddo to talk to the teacher? Do they need the level of social work? So we're the problem solver of trying to figure out what tools do they need and helping them put that in their toolbox, right?
Yeah, I think too, like in my observation, a lot of teens, and maybe is it today, or you have the context of many years of experience, that there's a lot of self-criticism for kids. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely.
Or is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you help kids through that and navigate that and realize, like, what you say to yourself, how you talk about yourself matters?
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
One of the things I had written down for myself when I was thinking about today was self-talk, modeling. You asked how else we can help, right?
Yeah.
Or what are we modeling ourselves as parents, which I'm going to get to the answer. What are we modeling as ourselves as parents? What are we eating? How are we sleeping? Are we on our phone all the time? When our kids are asking us a question, are we scrolling through? We might even be doing work emails.
Right, of course.
But we're not present, but we are, right? And so the kids are seeing that. What do we do for joy? What are we doing for healthy things? And so they're looking to us, they model, what we're doing, whether we know it or not. But the self-talk, like this growth mindset about teaching your kids to talk to themselves, even if it's in their bubble, the way they'd talk to a friend. So when they say, the girl's like, I'm going to drop out of school. I'm never going to go anywhere. I'm so dumb. And she was crying. We broke that down. Try to destigmatize that stress, and that one quiz doesn't shape her whole life and whatnot. So it's about that self-talk is huge.
So, and just to break it down further, that would be more of what would be a fixed mindset, right? Like I am not good at this versus I'm learning how to do this. I'm getting better
Right.
Constantly
Right.
having
Instead of saying,
conversations about
I'm
that.
so dumb.
Yeah.
God, I need to work on this a little bit. What can I do?
Yes.
And it's that inner voice. But they also have, I had another girl the other day who did poorly on an AP physics test, and she was in tears, and she said, I know I got the lowest grade, and she's, all of this negative self-talk, and, she thought peers were making fun of her, and it was really hard.
Yeah. You know what? I think too, like kids, what we say to our kids is people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you, especially for our middle schooler who
Totally
is very in the everything is embarrassing phase, which everybody goes through.
Yep.
Like, there's just, that's a reality.
Yeah.
But, we try to stress that everybody is feeling that same way, and guarantee nobody is looking at, or like when I drop him off in the morning, he turns the radio down or whatever I'm listening to, so that just,
so does my third grader.
God forbid,
Same
somebody
thing.
walking by hears
Right.
that I'm listening to a podcast or whatever it might be. But that like nobody cares
right.
that much.
I love that point. That is a huge, that you hit the nail on the head, because it's that negative self-talk and those ruminating thoughts and how intrusive they are. But in fact, other people are having them. And they're thinking about their same thing.
Same thing. They're too busy thinking about their own things to worry about what your mother is listening to when you open the car door.
Yeah. Today I dropped off my third grader and he said, Mom, please turn down your Dateline podcast. And I said, and I said, no, well, I wasn't even listening to it on the way. And I was like, okay, well.
Or have you had music playing?
Oh,
major cringe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And having an 8-year-old school you on what we should be listening to. I was like, okay, honey, I will. I'll turn it way down. I'm sorry to embarrass you.
But you did talk a little bit about just like this is a whole body experience in so many ways. It is, kind of academics and struggling in a social way can very much be tied to sleep, what you're eating, how you're caring for your body. So keeping all those things in mind are very important if we're worried that our kids are struggling. It takes some time for some reflection in that way.
And I think another strategy to your point is, again, I talked about modeling, right? And so kids are like, I don't need to do this. So I'm like, I've said to some parents, why don't you do it together? So for example, you are going to you're going to model and you're going to go out for some exercise. You want to take a walk with me, or you're taking your vitamins. Hey, why don't you want to try this with me, or whatever it may be, or say, I'm going to cut down on my coffee intake. You want to try with me? Like do like a little and celebrate the wins, celebrate the changes.
And I think that's a really
even the
important,
small ones.
Talk about that a little bit more too, because that is acknowledging changes made is important at any age, but it seems particularly important for teenagers who are just trying to find their place in the world.
Absolutely. I think because of social media too, everyone sees these big wins, these big changes, these drastic things, but they don't have to be the things that we celebrate. Sure, we're going to celebrate those things, but for self, preservation and reflection and self-growth, like what are the small wins? I decided to put my phone down every night at 9. I'm going to leave it downstairs. And I went upstairs and I totally focused on this. I did this for a week. God, it felt good. Or I told myself every day after school, I'm coming home, whatever time that is, after a club, a sport, or just coming home, taking care of your sibling. I'm going to spend 10 minutes on a snack. I'm going to spend 20 minutes on whatever. And then I'm going to start again, and making a structured time, whatever that win is. What is it that small change and adjustment you're doing for yourself? I'm going to learn to knit. I'm going to bring on a new hobby. Just that self-love, and that, I think is a big thing.
Very important.
Yeah.
If there was a takeaway for us parents, like one thing we could do today, or one thing we should really kind of go home and think about, what would that be?
I think that if it's identifying for your, struggling student, whatever that struggle may be, it's just being attentive and noticing the changes, being open and honest with the kiddos, because sometimes they just want to be seen and told and be recognized that these things are happening. And it's okay if they get angry and irritable. You sit there, and we're trying not to judge. We're trying not to say the quick fix, because sometimes as parents, we want to just quick fix.
Yes.
We have an answer, and they just need to be heard. And we need to slow ourselves down and let that process happen, because we've had years of the experience and whatnot. So acknowledging and listening and patience and taking the time. I mean, these things seem trivial and normal, but oftentimes we're rushed and it's not. And we'll just jump right to some other solution. And so kind of letting the process happen and that growth happen. And then as parents, it's okay, your kid is struggling. What do I need for tools myself? What strategies am I going to do? Do I partner with the school? Am I getting an outside person? Is it a tutor? Is it a therapist? Is it just connecting with whomever it may be? That's okay. Everyone goes through bumps, whatever that bump may be, and it's okay. And to have that forgiveness of yourself. So I think reaching out and just collaborating and having a connection is super important.
Sometimes just sitting with them,
Yeah.
whatever the feeling is.
Yeah. I have a kiddo that said that they love watching American Idol with their mom and they look forward to it every time the season comes around. And it's the time that they actually wrote an essay about this. And it's a time that they connect and a time that they share their love for music and what the different kinds of music was. But they talk about their day during commercials.
Love it.
And the daughter said, my mom used to always tape it and fast forward it through the commercials, but now we watch it live and we mute the commercial and we talk.
Oh
and
my gosh.
It's whatever strategy works, whatever it is. So another person was saying, my mom begged me to go to spin. She's like, I hate it, but it's exercise. Now I love it. So it's what strategy is working. Are you going to take a car ride and fix your car with your dad? Figure out what it is that you're doing and how to address that. Really long answer. Sorry.
Melissa, thank you so much. Really appreciate your
Thank you.
insight.
Thank
of course,
you.
We'll have more on this on our website, wgme.com/raisingme. So great having Melissa join us. And here are just a couple of takeaways I took particular note of. One, I love that idea that kids aren't pigeonholing themselves into one click or another with activities. She talked about an observation that she's made that it's just not as rigid as it used to be. Kids are participating in a wider variety of activities, trying different things out, breaking that mold of, well, I'm in this group, so I do this. That seems like such a big positive thing. So loved that. Second, and as I'm thinking about this, it's almost like here we go again, but the impact of phones and social media and that story she told about one of her students that he deleted all his social apps from his phone, but just could not bring himself to remove TikTok. And he knows he needs to do it because it's keeping him up at night. He's not alone, right? But that story just resonated, and it underlines that we as parents simply cannot take our finger off the pulse of how phones and social media are shaping our teens' experience inside and outside of school. It's sometimes, from a personal experience, like it feels like a losing battle, even when, our teens' phone use is in check, so to speak. The impact of the long-term impact of this, it's unknown. And then one more just point to underline is communication. That is so incredibly important. Regularly checking in, even when everything is fine, or you think, you feel like you're pestering or prying, which of course can lead to frustration and teens sort of shutting down communication. We've got to keep trying. And along that communication point, letting them know it is okay to not be okay. Their feelings and their experiences matter so much, and encouraging that positive self-talk, which my experience can be easier said than done. It absolutely kills me when I hear my teen say that she's, not good at this or that. So, I'm taking Melissa's tip that she talked about, just teaching our kids to talk to themselves the way they talk to a friend. Yes, I love it. And frankly, that's a takeaway we can all benefit from. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. This episode is edited by Megan Littlefield and produced with Nate Eldridge. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, consider a positive rating and review as well so others can help find this message. Wherever you are, I hope you learned something new and get to take a little time for you.